old friend of Anthony Huber's, 7, 8 years. Basically went to high school together, been friends ever since. I was out there and everything, you know, taking recordings of everything, seeing things that were happening, and a lot of people don't understand that.
This is a really loaded question. Yeah, do you want to just introduce like yourself, who you are, what you want to chat about? Yeah.
I guess I can go by Dosey. Okay. That's just kind of my like brood war name from back in the day that I just kind of kept. Old friend of Anthony Huber's, probably 7, 8 years. Basically went to high school together, been friends ever since. Just kind of want to ask you a few things about your views on the whole situation and kind of maybe enlighten some people on what actually kind of happened and like the whole of Kenosha rioting, not just specifically the shooting, because there's a few things that people kind of get wrong or don't know about.
Sure.
So just want to talk about that. And even though I'm Anthony Huber's friend, I'm not gonna support him per se, and I think what he did was wrong. And you know, I would say that Kyle Rittenhouse did self-defense. I wouldn't say that, you know, he was in the wrong or anything like that. So I don't want it to come across as like,
no, you're fine. You can have whatever opinion you want. I'm not gonna like scrimmage or anything.
Yeah. So one of the things I talked about is I saw your discussion about the pixels in the video, and I wanted to talk to you about that first.
Sure.
So with that, so I got what you're saying was that when you enhance a video, it puts pixels in, which I would agree with. It does do that, depending on what's happening.
Yeah,
but most likely,
yeah.
yes, that's, yeah. So my slight issue with that is, let's say you're right, and we enhance the video, and it's not a photo, it's a video, and let's say it's in the shape of a gun, per se. Let's just say but every frame, if it were to keep being let's say the shape of a gun, do you think that it would just be coincidence that it just happens to keep being the shape of a gun, or possibly that there actually was a gun being aimed? Obviously, me and you have both seen the video. It's horrible quality. We can't really tell.
Yeah, but let's assume it was better. So I think that it becomes a question of like, what is the purpose of the legal system, or how do we decide how the legal system should err on one side or the other? And I think that generally in the United States, we usually presume innocence unless we can prove guilt in these types of matters beyond a reasonable doubt. So as long as a reasonable doubt can still exist while watching the video, even if we say it could be his gun, maybe, as long as there's still a reasonable person could say, I mean, it could be something else as well, then ideally in those circumstances, there's enough of a doubt that you can't convict.
See, I would completely 100% agree with you, but my one little bit is that I don't think the prosecution has brought this up too much. And maybe this is me also conflating with just my personal like life of hearing people also talk. But there was multiple people stating they did see him also point a gun at people. I'm not sure if it was brought up in the court case, but yeah, so I feel like those two things combined might make it more likely that it wasn't just a coincidence of pixels being added.
So that's something that I 100% would agree with. And it's part of the strongest evidence that I would look for is, was there other testimony that corroborates what we could be seeing on video? Now, the unfortunate thing is, do you mind saying, do you lean left or right politically?
I would say I'm like, probably like around where you are, like a sock dem.
Okay, so definitely not a fan of Trump, I'm assuming, right?
No. I used to be like on the right, but not anymore.
Sure. So people will say a lot of things when they're talking to media or when they're just talking shit, but they'll testify to far less. And we saw this happen a lot with Giuliani and some of the Trump cases about fraudulent voters, where we had some people who were willing to either write an affidavit or, you know, Giuliani was talking a lot of shit, but when it came time to what he wanted to testify to in court under penalty of perjury, that testimony took on a far more cautious and guarded tone. And that's kind of my issue when I think of like, well, what happened with the Rittenhouse stuff in terms of him aiming a gun beforehand? You know, there might have been some people saying before, yeah, you know, maybe he was, and we saw this, but none of those people were willing to come and testify, which I think hurts the credibility of that evidence quite a bit. So if I'm a jury, I can't really consider like what was said to the media if these people aren't willing to actually testify in court.
Yeah, no, I completely agree with you. But also, I would add a little bit, I'm leaning towards what you're saying, but I also would add in that, like, even though he said he sarcastically said it, he did admit in court that he did point a gun at somebody, which I don't know why you would even just sarcastically admit to it, but that kind of like also kind of hurts your credibility. And, you know, it just came across.
I would have to, if he did, I would have to go back and say, I don't remember. We watched a lot of his testimony, but I don't watch all of it. But I don't think that happened. I think, or in court, he said that he had said something, but he was being sarcastic, but he didn't actually aim his gun at somebody, right?
Yeah. So what happened is that I'm not 100% sure, but it seemed like at first he said he did point his gun at someone who was jumping up and down on a car, which is why the whole thing was brought up about the video where he said, oh, if I had my gun, I would shoot them kind of thing.
Sure.
And then once the prosecution was talking to him, I guess you could say, he then kind of switched. It's like, well, I was being sarcastic. I actually didn't do it, but I just didn't want to like have a conflict and blah, blah, blah. But I mean, that kind of also can kind of lean towards is like, you're saying you're being sarcastic, but I mean, are you really being sarcastic? I mean, obviously, you know, people can lie and stuff like that. Like, you know, with like the owners of the car dealership,
Gotcha.
even though in the court they said, well, we didn't say they could do it. I have a feeling they were just doing that to kind of save their asses from like, you know, civil suits and stuff like that. But
yeah, maybe I'd have to go back and watch this particular interaction because I don't know if I caught this one. But I'm assuming you're saying everything that's true. But yeah.
Yeah, no, I mean, it's like 7 or 8 days of like 6-hour trials. I don't blame. I didn't even see the first like 3 days. They were just like snippets I caught.
Sure.
But and then there was a few more things. You were talking in counterpoints about juries and how he felt that like jurors shouldn't be the ones to kind of decide his fate. And I'm kind of leaning both ways on this one. And I'm only leaning both ways because I feel like the polarization of politics nowadays is pushing people so extreme left and right that it's just becoming an all or nothing. I don't know. Did you watch the jury selection of this?
I did not watch the jury selection, no.
Oh, so in the jury selection, there was a ton of jurors who were just basically like, nope, I can't do this. I'm biased. Like one person was basically like, I believe in the Second Amendment. And then the judge was like, well, this isn't about the Second Amendment. And he was just like, well, I believe it's about the Second Amendment. I'm going to be biased. And I feel like some people are being truthful, which is great, and that's like awesome of them. But there's also people that like could always just like lie and have it deep down. They're like, this is how I feel, and nothing's gonna change that. And I feel like in the past would be less likely, but I feel like with Trump and what the left is kind of doing, they're both just pulling each other away from each other, and there can't be any middle ground. And it's gonna come to the point where eventually someone might just be like, well, this is a political trial, and I like Trump and I like guns, so I'm just going to say that Kyle's innocent. Or the left could be like, well, I'm BLM and I just feel like, you know, he should be punished for what he's done. And I feel like they're like, even with all the evidence given, that it just won't even matter. They already have their opinion, that's it.
Yeah, I mean, it's possible. I mean, it seems like we become more and more partisan. But I mean, like, this has always kind of been a broader concern with jury trials, right? It could be the case. This is why, like, concepts like jury nullification exist, right?
Yeah, no, of course. But I'm just asking, like, do you feel it might hit a point where juries just couldn't necessarily work for many cases? Well, I'm saying, like, mostly, like...
I mean, that it is possible that could happen, but if we got to that point, then there's, like, our country is getting, like, fundamentally broken, right? It's not
I feel like we're slowly getting there, but
Sure.
Do you think there's any remedy to that, or is it just kind of just, like, you know, there's really nothing we can do to kind of solve this issue?
Yeah, I have no idea. If I knew how to fix that, I'd be like, that's like the $1 trillion question, right?
Yeah. And then another one was, I feel like this case could have some implications with vigilantism, and I'm wondering how you feel about that, because I feel like the left has definitely glorified this for the right. Not them glorifying it, but giving the right a reason to glorify it. And I feel like a lot of people would imitate what Kyle Rittenhouse did, and I feel like that wouldn't be very much a good thing. And I'm wondering if you feel like this case could lead to more cases such as this.
Yeah, I mean, it definitely could. It's hard to say because it almost feels like you could argue that it could lead to it on either side. Like for instance,
Yeah, of course.
let's say Rittenhouse gets, let's say he gets off completely. Maybe more conservatives are emboldened to start carrying arms to protest and stuff. And then situations that in the past might have ended with a couple of bloody noses or maybe even like a broken arm or something. Now people are getting shot and killed just because the everything is amped up when firearms get involved, right? Nobody's just fighting anymore. Now people are killing each other. So that is definitely a possibility. But I think the scary thing is that, or another fear could be that, let's say Rittenhouse actually doesn't get off. Let's say he gets convicted completely. Maybe that emboldens people on the left to be more, I guess, confrontational with conservatives if they think they have guns, because they think that they're going to be morally in the right to do so. You know?
No, like I completely agree. I was actually kind of like talking with a girlfriend about it, and like, let's say this case happened before January 6th, I could almost see some like crazy nutcase leftist like trying to justify, let's say, being at like the January 6th Capitol with a gun and basically saying like, if you try and come to this like Congress, I'm just gonna shoot you, and then assuming, let's say, I mean, obviously it's hyperbolic, but like assuming, he's protecting like government and Congress and people and stuff like that, just something like that. Like it could just lead to more extreme examples from both sides. I agree with you on both sides.
Sure,
I guess he's going both ways. Yeah. And then what's the other one? And then there was a few things that you said actually in the panel. You stated that the militia didn't show up until the riots came. Kind of
My
wasn't
understanding
true.
is that yeah, there might have been. I mean, you know better than me. There might have been people on the ground prior to that, but I thought that the group that Kyle was with, like their big show of force that night, was in response to the 2 prior nights of rioting that had happened, in response to the Jacob Blake shootings. That there had been like 2 really big nights of rioting, and that's why people were going out, Kyle included, to the next night.
Oh yeah. No, I think that group did come in response, but the first night I had driven the girlfriend home into like a certain neighborhood. I'm not gonna name it, but at the entrance of that neighborhood was actually militia people. There was 2 of them with like their AR-15s or whatever, and they didn't want people to come in until they identified them. I mean, I just drove past. I was like, I'm not gonna stop people with a gun, and then like they aimed guns at the car for a split second. And just put them down. I mean, that's obviously anecdotal, but it was definitely people were there everywhere.
Sure.
With their guns and stuff like that. And obviously, both sides, it looks bad on both sides. But yeah, no, that was just a little thing. And then I had some other stuff written down. Let's see. And then
have you been out doing any of the actual like with any of the protesters yourself, or are you just kind of like, do you know people involved in it?
I was there for the first few nights, and like I had video, and actually like on your Discord I had like showed some of the videos. Nothing like graphic or anything like that, but just like just some of the protesting. But like every night I was basically out there video recording and stuff like that. It was just, and then like I had been in a pretty similar situation as Kyle Rittenhouse, so I kind of feel like Kyle Rittenhouse did more than what he's saying he did. But to get to that, basically, I don't know if you really know the layout of Kenosha, but like where the courthouse is, there's like a park where everyone was like protesting and stuff like that. Some protesters had lit a fire, similar to Kyle Rittenhouse, what he did. I put it out, and then basically, being surrounded by protesters being screamed at. I mean, obviously, I just said redirected them. I was like, hey, like, we're not trying to like destroy the property. We're supposed to yell at cops. So, I mean, I was at the same time, I was actually getting shot by the cops too with rubber bullets. So that was fun. But yeah, no, just I was out there and everything, taking recordings of everything, seeing things that were happening, and a lot of people don't understand that the riots really didn't happen until the police had pushed people out of the little park area in front of the courthouse. Until that moment, there was, besides maybe like the school next to it, had the windows broken and graffitied, but it was the moment that the police had pushed everyone out, and that's where the riots started. And then the police really didn't do a great job at like locking down the city or what to do after pushing people out, because all they did was just basically just push people out into like the downtown area, and then obviously like people are crazy and just want to do whatever they have, but yeah, it was definitely very wild, and never seen like anything like this before in Kenosha. But
Gotcha.
But one other question I had, I guess, would be, I believe that Kyle Rittenhouse, and I gotta kind of word myself just in case people from Kenosha are listening, because yeah, like we discussed before. But
Oh, something. I'm just kind of curious. Something else, and you don't have to answer these, obviously, depending on what. Were you approached at all by, or did you end up talking to any law enforcement over everything that happened? Did they reach out and start questioning a lot of people in the area, or?
yes, actually, a family, because Kenosha isn't necessarily one city. There's also a part called Pleasant Prairie, and these kind of work together. And I have family in the Pleasant Prairie Police Department, and so they did talk to a lot of people, but you could also see a lot of bias in ways, I guess you could say. They talked to people, but you could also see a lot of other things like, let's say when the police had started moving forward, there would, let's say, be a protester with like, a decent camera, not like a phone, but like an actual decent camera recording, and the police would literally start pushing them out. But then another person that was just like a journal or something with another camera would be like let go and just be able to do whatever they want, even though they were saying everyone leave, et cetera, et cetera. But yeah, there were cops talking to people and stuff like that. I don't think there was any real arrests besides afterwards, because obviously they had drone footage and cameras like that. They started arresting people afterwards and filing complaints and stuff like that. But one question I had is, I agree that it was self-defense. I mean, if I was in the same situation as right now, so I would have done probably the same exact thing. Maybe not gone down the road he did. He easily could have if you watch the video, I know you watched the video, but where he's running and first shoots Rosenbaum, had he kept going straight and gone down that road, he could have just gone to a fire department that's, 6 blocks down, and could have easily not been interrupted with all the other crowds or had that whole situation with Anthony or Gage or anything like that. But do you feel that he was wrong in any way? Like he should get any charges? Like let's say not say like murder, but let's say like being reckless or whatever the charges are with like the lesser charges that might be implicated against him.
I would have to know specifically, like in terms of like possession of the weapon would come down to what the letter of the law is. I don't know for Kenosha, and I think even the jury is probably going to deliberate on whether that law was broken or not, because it seems to be pretty ambiguously worded. In terms of like the problem is there's two different questions. Are there things that he could have done to minimize the amount of harm ultimately they ended up causing? The answer to that is almost certainly yes. But in terms of like,
definitely.
Yeah, did he have like a moral or a legal responsibility to do that? Based on everything that I've seen, it seems like the answer is no. But I mean, is there some piece of evidence out there that just didn't get on video that we don't see, or something? Maybe something else that would change that. It could be the case. Yeah.
Yeah, no, I agree. I was kind of getting more to like, let's say like I forgot what the correct term is, but like not manslaughter, but like you were in a situation you had to do something, but you really didn't need to be there, kind of just like reckless.
Yeah, but the problem is like, what does it mean to need to be somewhere? That's kind of a weird onus to put on the American public. Like,
no, I agree. I was just kind of curious on your thoughts about it.
It's a strange precedent where it's like, if you're somewhere where you don't need to be, and do you like lose the right to self-defense or something, or is it compromised in some way? And that seems like a scary precedent to set, I would say.
Yeah. And the only like legitimate thing I would be kind of leaning against him would probably be the rounds he had. I mean, I know he said he didn't know what rounds were in there, but to have full metal jackets and using those more than likely will always go through somebody and can cause harm to other people.
Sure.
So I feel like that'd probably be like the only real thing I can hold against him for, obviously like the gun charge and stuff like that. But even that's kind of murky as if you'll get charged for that or anything like that. But
yeah, I don't necessarily disagree with that.
Yeah. And then in the panel, it was kind of brought up as to why guns were harder to obtain than rifles. I don't understand why people have an issue with that, because pistols can just be hidden easier.
Yeah,
that's always the reason I've known as. It's just it's easier to hide a pistol than it is an AR-15. You can't really put an AR-15, underneath your shirt. So
yeah, and then the vast majority of gun crimes in the United States are committed with pistols. So it makes more sense that we have a lot more regulations around pistols than rifles.
Yeah. And then I think in Wisconsin, pistols are 21. So he was right that he couldn't get a pistol. But but yeah, I mean, that was just kind of really all I wanted to ask and stuff like that. I mean, maybe if any more questions or like the situation and stuff, but I just wanted to kind of just ask you a few questions, specifically about like the pixels and stuff. That really got me going and stuff like that. I was just like, oh, like,
do you think?
What's his thought on this?
Yeah, do you have a lot of friends that are still in the area that are like involved in the protests at all?
Oh yeah, dozens of friends were there. I'd met up with them and we were all recording and talking and stuff like that.
What do you think the general like temperature is in terms of them feeling, in terms of them like protesting after a Rittenhouse verdict? Like, let's say he comes off exonerated, he's innocent. Do you think that there's going to be like a lot of people taking to the streets? Do you think it's just going to be some minor protesting and then people will go home, or how do you think that's going to end?
I feel I'll this is gonna be a pretty hot take, but the fact that everyone that was shot was white definitely kind of doesn't help. I know it's like kind of like if you say, but with speaking with my friends, a few of them are basically all or nothing. I mean, if he doesn't basically get like a life sentence during a protest, a few of them are basically like if he were to get off with nothing, they would protest. But I mean, if he were to get enough charges where he spent let's say like 5 or 10 years in prison, but didn't get the murder charges, they might be okay with that. But things are definitely very tense. I know Evers has 500 National Guard already here and setting up and stuff like that, and like the roads around the courthouse are already like posted that you can't park there, and they're getting ready basically for what's gonna come. And yeah, the whole city is basically like split in half on the whole thing, so it's more than likely no matter what it's gonna be chaos. I'm sure tons of people will protest unless he gets a life sentence basically. So
Yeah.
specifically friends, they basically want him like hung. I mean, I've talked to, let's say, like Anthony Huber's girlfriend Hannah. I'm like close friends with her. Like I've talked to those people in private and said like, I wish Anthony, let's say, like didn't die, but I also would say that what Anthony did was pretty fucking dumb to go up. You don't use a skateboard against someone that has a rifle. I mean, it's just pretty silly and really dumb.
Sure.
But yeah, everyone's very, very it's very tense here, I guess you could say. But I think since it's been so long, things have kind of calmed down. Like even like Hannah, Anthony's girlfriend, has like obviously not specifically to him, but basically reconciled things and was like, I'll never understand like why you did what you did, Kyle, but like I forgive you, kind of stuff like that.
Gotcha.
But yeah, no, it's just things are very tense, and tomorrow we'll find out how things go. I'm not sure if it'll be over tomorrow. I'm not sure if the deliberation will be done. Maybe Tuesday, but yeah, we'll definitely find out.
Just this is a really loaded question.
I love loaded questions.
Sure. So you sound like you're protesting kind of from a left-leaning perspective, yeah?
Yeah.
Do you think does it feel like there's a lot of kind of either like white supremacist or white supremacist adjacent people there? Like, do you get that impression more from some of the counter protesters, or do they just kind of seem like Midwestern, country-ish, rural people? Or do you think it's a bit more insidious than that? Is there like a big like Proud Boys or other type of like far right-leaning presence in these cities?
I didn't really see any Proud Boys per se. I mean, I was kind of talking to your Discord about it, like the afterwards, like at the bar where he did the OK sign. I mean, like I get it, the OK sign's kind of a meme, but it's just like he probably knew what that meant, so for him to do it and stuff like that. But specifically like there, I mean, there was a lot of like Boogaloo Boys, if you want to call them that, there. But I think it was more so the way they dressed and the fact that they kind of kept to themselves that probably gave the wrong vibes to the protesters. Because like I said, like I did the very similar thing to what Kyle did, but also, like I wasn't dressed in military gear and like with an AR-15 and stuff like that, and I wasn't kind of hanging out with people that were like protecting the community. Though when it comes to if he had got granted permissions, obviously up in debate with what the owner said, but I would definitely say it was more they kind of just on their own singled themselves out and made themselves look different. I think that's what really kind of set it off, because there was other people like me, and I guess I don't want to like combine myself with Rittenhouse, but like to try to stop things, like like I tried to stop a business that like I worked at from getting destroyed and stuff like that, and but I think it was just the way that they went about things that just singled themselves out and just made them look like that. I don't think Kyle Rittenhouse is a white supremacist. I'm pretty sure he's Hispanic. I'm pretty sure, but yeah, I think it was just that they just singled themselves out and made themselves more present than they needed to be. I mean,
yeah, gotcha. Makes sense. How old are you?
I
Or you don't have to, you
am.
can be like, yeah. You mentioned that you said Brood War, I guess. Did you actually play like Brood War as a kid growing up, or?
Yeah. I'm 29, so I'm kind of close to your age. But yeah,
Yeah,
I
gotcha.
I
Okay.
play I still play Brewer here and there. I'm kind of a degenerate and just play the user map settings, but
Oh,
you
jeez.
know.
Okay, gotcha.
But yeah. But yeah, that was basically all I had written down. Oh, I had one more thing actually.
Mm-hmm.
So let's say the video was correct and he was pointing guns at people.
Mm-hmm.
Do you believe that someone, obviously it'd be stupid to go at this person. I would never do it. Obviously, I would just run and hide. It's
Mm-hmm.
not worth it. Even unless I had a gun, obviously.
Mm-hmm.
But let's say Kyle Rittenhouse did point his guns at people, which is obviously the contention of the prosecution in that one video in contention. Do you believe that the moment someone points a gun at you, immediately just allows you to consider that a lethal threat and give you the right to self-defense at any means? Because at least I've grown up with guns, I hunt,
Mm-hmm.
and you never point a gun at someone you're not willing to shoot.
Yeah.
So that's the way I see it.
If somebody points a gun at you, you don't have a right to indefinitely chase them.
Oh no, yeah.
But I would say that it changes things a lot. If he is actually brandishing his firearm at somebody like seconds before Rosenbaum is chasing him, I would have to think. I would have to like super deliberate. Like the timelines and everything would become really important, because let's say that he does that and then he's running for like 2 minutes. And then Rosenbaum chases him down and then he shoots him. Nah, I don't think so. But let's say, like,
Oh no, yeah, that'd be self-defense completely.
yeah, but let's say that he brandishes his firearm, and then I think from that moment to Rosenbaum getting shot, is it within like 10 seconds or less? Were these close? Go ahead.
No, sorry, go ahead. No, you go ahead.
I'm trying to think of how close together were the events of him being claimed to have brandished a firearm at Zelminski, I think, versus Rosenbaum chasing him. I'm pretty sure that's supposed to be less than 10 seconds. It gets really, really, really bad. Like right now, assuming that piece of evidence isn't what the prosecution says it is, I think it's 99% leaning in favor, like morally and legally, for Rittenhouse. But if that piece of evidence was real and it actually was him running for him, I think it changes to like in favor of Rittenhouse, but like 53%. I think it goes way, way, way down. I think things become way more hazy at that point. Because like you said, if somebody's pointing a rifle at somebody, brandishing a firearm, depending on how you've been trained around firearms, if somebody's pointing a gun at me, I assume you're going to kill me. That's the only reason you ever point a gun at anyone ever, is because you're ready to kill them. So at that point, Rosenbaum is within 10 seconds is probably justified in attacking Rittenhouse. And if we're saying that Rittenhouse is engaged in like provocation of what would be, homicide, he completely loses his right to self-defense. Now, the two that happen afterwards, I don't know how that gets ruled on legally. If your first killing's unjustified, is it like a domino effect? But yeah, it definitely makes things way more hazy for sure. The prosecution definitely wants this piece of evidence in because it is the most important piece of evidence that they could submit. Yeah.
Yeah, no, I was actually reading. It was like a lawyer's website, and it was like they were questioning if like Binger had something at the end, like a big surprise, like he was building up something. But from what I remember the video, from what the prosecution is saying, is that he had brandished his weapon, and that's when it started. And then I think this one isn't really debated too much, but if you watch the video like very closely, I know it's hard to see, but they get to like the midpoint of where they start running to where Rosenbaum gets shot. He turns around and points his gun again, and that's where Rosenbaum jumps up and with his hands up, which makes things a little weird because, I really don't know, like, why either side would, like, just keep pointing and backing up and the guy won't come forward, or like why did he jump up and stop if he was going to chase him. But I think what happened is possibly brandished the gun, starts running halfway, turns around, points. Rosenbaum jumps up with his hands up, and then Rittenhouse turns around again to keep running, and then Rosenbaum starts chasing again. So I feel like in that case, Rosenbaum had all the information he needed to know that this guy will kill me if I keep chasing him. So I don't defend Rosenbaum at all. 0, 100, like nothing. He got what came to him. But then I feel with, let's say, like, the Gage and Anthony Huber perspective, what they did was dumb too, but I have to interpret that all they knew about is people screaming, that guy just killed someone, that guy just shot somebody. And then it comes down to, did they interpret Rittenhouse as just like a mass shooter?
Basically.
That way, yeah. And then it comes down obviously it's still self-defense, but you could argue in defense of like Anthony a little bit that he's, trying to stop a mass shooter, I guess.
Yeah.
I'm using quotations right now, but
sure. One thing that people don't consider a lot is that I think that there are absolutely cases where somebody gets killed in self-defense, but the other guy had like a moral like defense for attacking him. Like, let's say, for instance, let's say I'm in a room and some guy walks in with a pistol and I'm with my kid and somebody else comes in screaming. They're like, that guy's got a gun. Like he's trying to shoot all the kids in here or whatever, right? Like, fuck, I might attack the guy. I might jump on the guy, right? And if that guy sees me attack him and he's got his pistol out and he points at me, he's like, get away from me, I'm gonna shoot you or whatever, right? It might be the case that he shoots and kills me, right? And it might be in that case that like, I mean, I think if my child's in the room or if I feel like there's like an active shooter, I have what I feel is like a good reason to attack somebody. Like that is totally justified. But if he's not doing that at all and he feels like I might kill him again, he might be justified in his self-defense, right? I think there can be situations where if you look at it from Huber's perspective or from the other two, Gage and the other guy that tried to attack him in the street or did attack him in the street, right?
Yeah, the jump kick or whatever.
Yeah. I mean, like from their perspective, based on everything that happened, they might have felt justified and even had been justified arguably in what they were doing. That's totally possible. Yeah.
Yeah. No, I completely agree 100%. That's why like I feel like Rosenbaum shouldn't be part of like Gage and Anthony, the other guy, because Rosenbaum was just an idiot.
Well, yeah, because when
I would say
when the other two attacked him, when the other two attacked him, Rittenhouse had shot somebody. That actually happened. That 100% did happen, right? Yeah. So, yeah, I mean that is those two are the later two are far different than Rosenbaum for sure. Yeah.
Yeah, no, they're 100% different. And then I just had something, I lost it when you started speaking.
Oh, sorry.
But no, you're good. You're good. This is just my feeling, or like, obviously I don't know how this would work out legally, but with Kyle Rittenhouse's testimony and his obliviousness to gun knowledge, like I said, I don't know how this would work legally, but like, do you think it would be fair to basically ban Kyle Rittenhouse from ever owning a gun again because he didn't check what his bullets were, and he wasn't supposed to have one per se and stuff like that? I just feel like a person like that who is so oblivious and just says he buys a gun because it's cool probably shouldn't have a right to a gun, because I feel like that goes against everything gun ownership means.
I don't like the idea of permanently revoking somebody's like Second Amendment right. That seems really brutal. Like even the fact that felonies can't own a gun, I think is kind of strange. Or felons can't own a gun.
Or like not be able to vote and stuff. Yeah,
that's I don't like that idea. But like gating him behind like taking some mandatory firearm class or whatever, or having to do some level of shit or whatever in order to earn his like privileges back. I think, or I should say right back. I think is fair. That it is a little cringe to me. Like if you're gonna show up at an event and you literally have an AR-15 with you and you're ready to like shoot and kill people, that like you don't know the difference between like different types of like self-defense bullets. That's really strange to me that you would have no idea about that. Like I would expect that's like some bare minimum like foundational knowledge I would imagine you have. But yeah.
Or I think he said that he didn't know if a gun could shoot past like 20 feet or something like that. Like just like insane things like that. He was like, well, I didn't know a pistol could shoot more than 20 feet. I think most of it maybe was like, I don't know. I couldn't tell if he was being serious or if he was obviously like trained how to speak, to the prosecution. But
it's probably going to be some level of coaching is probably going to happen to where this is total conjecture. I'm guessing, I could be wrong, but like it probably sounds better from the defense to say, I don't know if this could happen versus I knew this, but I disregarded it anyway in the moment or something, right? That could be the case too. There's some level of like, I don't want to say coaching going on because I don't know if that's legal, but there's some level of like, he should probably respond this way or else it damages his case. Yeah.
Oh, yeah. No, I definitely agree. I'm sure he was told, like, hey, you should kind of talk in this way or answer in this way and, like, kind of plain oblivious and stuff. But I almost feel like that kind of hurts his case, too, at the same time. Like, for a jury to hear a guy who has a gun and doesn't understand anything about it or, like, what's bullets or anything like that. But I do think, like, the FMJ rounds definitely hurts a little bit because you don't really have those rounds for anything other than, like, piercing.
I mean, like target practice or whatever, right? Because they're way cheaper than other, right? I think at the end of the day, I don't know how much the jury is going to have any idea or care about this, right? Because these are kind of like, unless you're like a big gun fan, I don't know if anybody really knows or cares about this kind of stuff, right?
Yeah. How do you feel the prosecution did? I feel they did horrible. They could have done a lot better. And almost getting a mistrial is pretty bad. I mean, they did a lot of dumb stuff, I guess you could say.
Yeah, I mean, like, I don't know who chooses who has to be the prosecutor, or if the prosecutor can recuse himself. Because, like, I would say that, like, yeah, the prosecution did pretty bad, but I mean, like, this is always a really hard case for the prosecution. I don't know, like, if there was ever going to be like a good case for them. Like,
Oh, definitely, especially with everything on video. I mean, this is, I wouldn't say unprecedented, but this is like one of the, newer cases with like newer technology where like everything's recorded,
everything is
everything's
recorded.
seen.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. But let's say, um, I will definitely say, obviously this is more personal and just like through my city. The judge, like the only bias I have is probably against the judge. The judge is a really, really right-leaning judge that definitely helps the case of the defense. But obviously this is more anecdotal and stuff like that. But I guess I feel like things would be a little bit different because like here's a good example. He wouldn't allow the prosecution to call them victims, even though in Wisconsin, I believe it's like the moment that bullet went through Anthony under like Wisconsin law, he would be considered a victim immediately.
I think that the difference, I would have to check, because I saw a couple people brought up on this. My understanding was that when the thing that is the most material to the case is whether or not the person is a victim, that it's pretty standard not to allow that type of verbiage. I thought there was actually case law that had supported that, because right now that is the question, is were they victims or was Kyle justified, right? Because if Kyle was justified in shooting, they're not really victims, they're aggressors.
Yeah. I think it might have been just the wording also of Schroeder when he said like, well, I don't consider people victims until convicted, which kind of says a lot. To be like, well, if there was like a video of like a woman, let's say, being sexually assaulted for everyone to see, would he like be like, nope, you can't say she's a victim until it's conviction, even though it's like clear and plain to see. So I don't know, it's just kind of weird that he would, say that, well, they can't be victims until it's a conviction or not. So I don't know. I think it contradicts Wisconsin law. I'm not obviously a lawyer or anything like that, but yeah. But I mean, that's really all I had to say. I can't think of anything else. I wrote some stuff down, but I can't think of anything else I wanted to ask you. I just kind of had a few questions about like the pixels and then what you said, the counterpoints and stuff like that. But I just kind of want to see what your views were on those. But yeah, I mean, if there's nothing else you can think of, I mean.
No, I think that's probably it.
Oh, one last thing though.
Yeah.
Two last things actually. Two last things. The panel you discussed with makes me wish that people wouldn't even like try to defend Anthony and stuff like that because they're so wrong and stuff. It just makes it worse, I guess you could say. And being polite about it. And then your Discord wanted me to say Obama or something like that. So,
Gotcha.
So I'm just letting it out. But yeah. But yeah, I think that's it for me.
All right. Well, I appreciate the conversation. Good luck with everything. How long have you lived in that? So you're not like from Kenosha, you're from like one of the surrounding like metropolitan areas, or?
I'm literally like, if I drive 30 seconds, I'm in Kenosha.
Yeah.
I'm technically Kenosha County. Yeah,
Sure,
but I've lived
okay,
my
I
entire
understand.
life.
Okay.
Yeah.
Are you? How long have you lived there for?
My entire life.
Gotcha.
So.
Okay.
All right. Yeah. Thank you for listening to me and letting me ask some questions. I really appreciate that.
Yeah, no problem. Well, hey, good luck, buddy. Stay safe. Be careful. Might be a crazy coming few days or weeks or whatever. So.
It's gonna be hectic, but yeah, thank you. All right. Have a good night.
Have fun. Good luck.